What if everything you've been told about life and death was only part of the story? What if death wasn't the terrifying end we've always imagined, but the next great transformation? Eddie Casey, often referred to as the sleeping prophet, revealed profound truths about life, consciousness, and death that challenge the very foundation of how we see our existence. His teachings defied the traditional narratives of fear and punishment, offering instead a vision of death as an ascension, a continuation of the soul's journey into a higher state of being. The wisdom Eddie shared, though recorded, was suppressed for decades. Why? Because his message was too radical for a world that thrives on fear, control, and the separation of life and death. Eddie's words invite us to see death not as a finality, but as an opportunity, a doorway to greater clarity, love, and connection. In today's exploration, we'll dive deep into Eddie's teachings and how they reshape our understanding of existence, death, and the soul's eternal journey. The man who revealed the truth, the sleeping prophet. Eddie Casey, known as the Sleeping Prophet, was a man whose profound insights into the nature of life and death stunned those who were willing to listen. His fame grew not just from his medical miracles and prophecies, but from his ability to access deep realms of consciousness. His extraordinary understanding of the afterlife, a concept that many feared, was encapsulated in his final interview, a piece of content that was recorded but never released to the public. Why was it hidden? Eddie's words were powerful and not easily digestible in a world that is so deeply embedded in fear, control, and religious dogma. His teachings conflicted with established views of death and what lies beyond, particularly those propagated by religious institutions. His message was clear. Death is not a terrifying abyss, but a natural transition to greater clarity and consciousness. It was a message that challenged the very foundation of how we perceive the end of life, and perhaps that's why it was silenced. What Eddie spoke about was a profound shift in our understanding of life and death, a shift that would empower individuals to transcend their fear of mortality. Imagine this. For most of us, death is something we avoid thinking about, something to be feared. We view it as the ultimate end. Eddie's teaching dismantles this fear by suggesting that death is not an end, but a new beginning. He compares it to shedding a heavy coat that you didn't realize was burdening you. Once removed, you are liberated. No longer encumbered by the weight of the physical world, you are free to experience something far greater: clarity, expansion, and transformation. The mainstream narrative of death tells us that it's a finality, that it's a moment of judgment, and that we are either rewarded or punished for our actions on earth. Eddie's message, however, suggests that judgment is an illusion. The soul does not face punishment after death. Instead, it experiences an awakening, an experience that leads to greater understanding. He challenges us to rethink everything we thought we knew about death, encouraging us to embrace the idea of a higher consciousness, one that transcends physical limitations. This notion of consciousness as eternal and boundless challenges the idea that life ends when the body dies. Consider, for example, figures like Steve Jobs or Albert Einstein, individuals who have passed but whose ideas, innovations, and contributions continue to resonate in the world. They have left behind a legacy, and their thoughts and inventions persist long after their physical bodies are gone. This isn't just the result of their impact in life. It's a testament to the idea that consciousness, in some form, lives on, influencing the world and those who encounter it. Eddie's perspective can be seen as a natural extension of this. Death does not diminish our essence, it expands it. The essence of the soul, consciousness beyond the body. In Eddie's teachings, the soul is not a prisoner bound by the physical body. Rather, it is the very essence that animates the body. The body, in Eddie's view, is merely a vessel, a temporary home for the soul as it navigates the human experience. When the body ceases to function, the soul does not cease to exist. On the contrary, it continues on, transcending the physical realm and returning to a state of clarity and unity with the universe. One way to understand this concept is to think of the soul as a river, with the body being a small part of the river's journey. While the river may flow through a particular terrain, its essence is not defined by the terrain. It is the same river, continuing its journey, unaffected by the landscape it encounters. Similarly, the soul continues its existence beyond the confines of the body, untouched by death and unbound by the limits of physical existence. To further this concept, let's draw parallels with the philosophical perspectives of some of the world's greatest thinkers. Consider the idea of immortality espoused by Socrates. He believed that death was not something to be feared, but something to be embraced as a natural part of life's journey. Socrates' teachings suggest that the soul, being eternal, would continue its journey beyond death, much like Eddie Casey's views. The soul, as Socrates saw it, does not perish with the body, but rather enters a new phase of existence. Additionally, we can look at the example of quantum physics, which also presents a view of the universe that challenges traditional perceptions of physicality. The concept of energy as never being destroyed, but merely transformed, is a modern-day reflection of ancient philosophical ideas about the continuity of the soul. Just as energy cannot be destroyed, so too does the soul persist beyond the death of the body, continuing its journey in a different form. Eddie's insights provide a framework that allows us to see death as part of an eternal cycle of consciousness rather than an abrupt end. This is not about fearing the afterlife, but rather understanding that the soul's essence remains constant and unbroken. He described this state of the soul after death as an experience of liberation, a transition from the confines of the physical world to a state of pure clarity and consciousness. This is an empowering realization, as it encourages individuals to live without the constant fear of death looming over them. The idea of death as liberation also dispels the traditional notion of judgment. Many religions and ideologies teach that there is a final judgment, where the soul is weighed based on its actions in life. Eddie's teachings challenge this idea, suggesting that the true judgment comes from within the soul itself. There is no external force meting out judgment. Rather, it is the soul's understanding of its journey, the lessons it has learned, and the awareness it has gained that define its evolution after death. This perspective echoes the philosophies of individuals like Nelson Mandela, whose legacy continues to inspire millions despite his passing. Mandela's journey was not defined by external rewards or punishments, but by his own internal transformation, his understanding of the world, his capacity for forgiveness, and his commitment to justice. In much the same way, Eddie Casey suggests that the afterlife is not about punishment but self-realization and spiritual growth. The end of fear, embracing transformation. The fear of death is perhaps one of the most powerful forces that shape human existence. It influences the way we live, the way we make choices, and even the way we perceive the world around us. Eddie Casey's teachings challenge us to confront and transcend this fear. According to Eddie, the fear of death arises from the illusion of separation. We believe that when the body dies, we are lost. But the truth is, we are never separate from the universe. We are one with it, and this oneness continues beyond the death of the body. Eddie describes death not as a fearful event, but as a transition, one that frees the soul from the limitations of the physical world. Just as a bird may fly free from its cage, the soul, upon the body's death, rises to a state of greater freedom and clarity. This freedom is not just a release from the physical body, but a liberation from the illusion that we are separate from the universe. It is a return to the light, a return to the source. The concept of death as transformation is powerful because it shifts our perception of life itself. It encourages us to live fully, without the constant worry about the end. When we understand that our consciousness is eternal, we begin to live with purpose and intention. We stop seeing life as a race to the finish line and start seeing it as a journey to be experienced, to be felt, and to be embraced. To illustrate this, think of someone like Oprah Winfrey, whose life and career have inspired millions. Oprah has transcended her own struggles and fears, choosing to live with intention and authenticity. Her ability to inspire others comes from her deep understanding of life's transient nature and her commitment to living with purpose. In the same way, Eddie's teachings encourage us to live with awareness, to embrace the present moment, and to understand that death is not something to be feared but something to be welcomed as part of the grand cycle of existence. By confronting and overcoming the fear of death, we open ourselves up to a new understanding of life. We begin to live with greater intention, greater love, and greater understanding. We stop seeing life as something to be endured and start seeing it as a gift that continues beyond the physical into the realms of the eternal. The power of the life review. One of the most profound aspects of Eddie's teachings is the concept of the life review. After death, the soul undergoes a review of its life, not as a form of judgment, but as a process of understanding. This review is not about assessing whether we were good or bad, but about reflecting on how we lived, how we loved, and how we impacted the world around us. In the life review, the soul witnesses its actions from a higher perspective. It sees the connections it made, the relationships it nurtured, and the ways in which it contributed to the world. The review allows the soul to understand the full impact of its life, not just from a personal perspective, but from a universal one. It is an opportunity for the soul to learn, grow, and evolve. This concept can be likened to the life lessons shared by influential figures like Mahatma Gandhi, whose life was not defined by external accomplishments, but by his commitment to truth, peace, and justice. Gandhi's life review, were it to happen in the context of Eddie's teachings, would not be about accolades or recognition. Instead, it would be about understanding the profound impact of his actions on the world and the people around him. A new understanding of death, fear vs. transformation. Death has long been considered the final frontier, the inevitable end to life. It is often shrouded in fear, with many people seeing it as a dark, unknown abyss. This fear of death, deeply ingrained in society and religion, can prevent us from fully living and experiencing life in its entirety. However, Eddie's teachings provide a profound shift in how we view death. He suggests that death is not the end but a transformation, a continuation of the soul's journey toward enlightenment. Rather than seeing death as a cliff we fall off, he encourages us to view it as a doorway, a threshold into another phase of existence. The power of fear. Fear, as Eddie teaches, is a static force. It keeps us trapped in the illusion of separation, the belief that we are isolated and detached from the world around us. This fear is deeply tied to the physical body and its inevitable decline. For centuries, humans have clung to the belief that death represents the end of everything, that when the body dies, so does the essence of who we are. This fear binds us to the physical world, making us afraid of letting go of the body and ego, afraid of losing our sense of identity. But what if we could learn to release that fear? What if we could stop identifying so strongly with our physical form and our ego, and instead embrace the natural process of life and death? Eddie's teachings suggest that this release is the key to peace and clarity. When we let go of the fear surrounding death, we open ourselves to the idea that death is not something to fear, but something to accept with gratitude. It is a natural process, just like birth or growth. By letting go of our attachment to the physical body and our egos, we can experience death as a release into a greater state of consciousness, one that is not bound by the limitations of the physical world. This teaching is not a mere philosophical concept, but a deeply felt experience. It challenges us to let go of the attachments that bind us to this life. It asks us to view death not as a loss, but as a transformation, an opportunity for liberation. Eddie's message is clear. Those who cling to life out of fear, who resist the natural flow of existence, are the ones who remain trapped. But those who can embrace the unknown with trust and gratitude rise into a state of unity with the universe, experiencing a deeper sense of peace. The transformation of consciousness. The idea that death is a transformation rather than an end is not just spiritual rhetoric. It is a deeply experiential shift in consciousness. When we let go of fear, we create space for an expanded awareness. This shift in consciousness can be likened to a form of awakening. Much like a caterpillar that emerges from its cocoon, the soul experiences a profound transformation when it releases its attachments. Eddie's teachings reveal that death is not a judgment, nor is it something that occurs as punishment. Instead, it is the natural result of the soul's continued evolution. A poignant example of this transformation can be seen in the lives of influential figures like Nelson Mandela. Mandela spent years imprisoned, forced to confront the physical limitations of his body. Yet, despite his confinement, his consciousness expanded. He became more than just a prisoner. He became a symbol of hope and resilience for millions of people. His mind and spirit were not bound by the physical limitations of his body. In a similar way, Eddie's teachings suggest that even as the physical body ceases to function, the soul is not bound by the same constraints. When we let go of fear, we allow ourselves to experience this form of liberation. Death, Eddie suggests, is a process that happens when the soul is ready to transition. This transition isn't something to be feared. It is a process of returning to a state of unity with the universe. For those who can release their attachments and let go of their fear, this transformation is smooth, almost effortless. It is a rising into greater clarity, a return to light, a reconnection with the source of all being. The Soul's Journey, Eternal Essence and Life Review. One of the most compelling aspects of Eddie's teachings is the concept of the life review after death. Unlike the traditional view of judgment, where the soul is weighed and punished for its sins, Eddie reveals that the soul experiences a life review, but it is not a trial. Instead of being judged by an external force, the soul reviews its own journey, seeing the impact it had on others, the choices it made, and the energy it gave off during its earthly life. This life review is not about guilt, punishment, or condemnation. Rather, it is a process of self-understanding and reflection. The soul is not condemned for its mistakes or actions, but instead is given the opportunity to learn from them. There is no judge, no punishment, just understanding. This review process helps the soul to grow, to become more aware of its true nature and purpose. This concept of self-reflection after death is deeply empowering. It allows the soul to acknowledge the full range of its experiences, not just the good, but also the challenges, the mistakes, and the lessons learned along the way. The idea of a life review can be likened to the process of self-reflection that many influential figures undergo during their lives. Take, for example, the late Steve Jobs. Jobs was known for his intense self-reflection, constantly pushing himself to learn from his successes and failures. After his death, his life, work, and the impact he had on the world were not judged by an external force, but were reflected upon by those who were touched by his vision. In much the same way, Eddie's teachings suggest that the life review is not about judgment, but about understanding and evolution. Eddie's view of the life review also suggests that it is a key component of the soul's evolution. Every choice, every relationship, every experience is woven into the soul's continued growth. The soul's journey is not linear, but rather a spiral of growth and learning. As the soul reflects on its life, it gains deeper insight into its purpose and its connection to the universe. It realizes that its actions and energy are part of a greater whole, a larger tapestry of existence, a space for transformation. rather than being a courtroom drama where the soul is condemned or praised. The life review is a space for transformation. It is a space where the soul sees itself clearly, without the distractions of the ego or the body. Eddie's teaching suggests that the life review is not a time to dwell in guilt or regret. Instead, it is a time for the soul to see the totality of its experience and understand how its energy has shaped the world around it. This process of self-awareness and reflection can be seen in the lives of many great leaders and thinkers. Take, for example, the Dalai Lama, who frequently speaks about the importance of self-awareness and reflection in personal growth. The Dalai Lama often emphasizes the importance of reflecting on one's actions and intentions, as it is through this reflection that we can truly understand our role in the world and evolve spiritually. Eddie's teachings echo this idea, suggesting that the life review is a space for the soul to evolve, learn, and transform. The soul's review is not a judgmental process, but a transformative one. It is a time for deep understanding and self-realization. It allows the soul to acknowledge its strengths and weaknesses and to see how its energy has impacted others. By engaging in this process, the soul can move closer to its true essence and its greater purpose in the universe. The sacred work of letting go, releasing the illusions. One of the most profound teachings of Eddie Casey is the importance of releasing attachments, particularly before death. The act of letting go is not about loss, but about ascension. It is a transformative process that allows the soul to shed the physical, emotional, and psychological burdens that it has carried throughout its life. This practice is crucial for the soul to transcend its earthly limitations and enter a higher state of consciousness. At its core, Eddie's message about letting go speaks to the concept of attachment, how deeply we hold onto the things that define us, our bodies, our identities, our possessions, and our pasts. These attachments, while they may feel like parts of who we are merely transient aspects of the physical world. Eddie teaches that as we near the end of our lives, our souls must learn to release these attachments in order to ascend to a higher state of being. This process is not about giving up what we love, but about understanding that we are not our possessions, our history, or our physical forms. This idea can be exemplified through the lives of some of the most influential figures in history, such as Steve Jobs. Jobs, in the final years of his life, had to let go of his once powerful identity as the founder of Apple, a company that he had built from the ground up. In his battle with cancer, Jobs was confronted with the reality that his body, no matter how powerful and successful his mind was ultimately a temporary vessel. In his last moments, he let go of the business empire that had defined him for so long. This act of letting go was not a defeat, but a transcendence. Just as Eddie teaches, Jobs' release was a necessary step for his soul to transition to a higher state of existence. The process of releasing fear, guilt, and unresolved attachments. Eddie's teachings emphasize that in order for the soul to move into higher realms, it must release more than just its physical attachments. The soul must let go of fear, guilt, and unresolved emotional attachments. Fear, for example, is one of the greatest forces that keep the soul bound to the physical plane. Fear of the unknown, fear of the afterlife, and fear of loss all contribute to the soul's reluctance to let go of its earthly connections. Consider the example of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison under apartheid, a system built on fear, oppression, and hatred. Upon his release, Mandela had every reason to hold onto resentment and anger, yet he chose to let go of those emotions in order to embrace reconciliation and unity. His ability to release the past was what allowed him to move forward and fulfill his higher purpose, the freedom of his people. His transformation mirrors Eddie's teaching that the release of fear and guilt allows for ascension. When the soul releases guilt, Whether it is guilt about past actions, relationships, or regrets, it frees itself from the emotional baggage that weighs it down. Guilt is often rooted in the ego's attachment to the self-image, the desire to prove one's worth, or the need to control the narrative of one's life. In the process of letting go, Eddie teaches that the soul must relinquish these attachments, recognizing that they are not true to its higher essence. Eddie likens the act of releasing attachments to a graduation, rather than a betrayal. The body, which has served as the soul's vehicle for this lifetime, is no longer necessary once the soul has completed its journey. Just as a student must leave behind their textbooks after graduation, the soul must leave behind the body when it has fulfilled its purpose. This perspective is a powerful reframe for those who fear death as the ultimate loss. It is not a betrayal of life, but a recognition that the soul is ready to return to its source, having learned what it came to experience. The afterlife, energy, frequency, and vibration. One of the most radical aspects of Eddie's teachings about the afterlife is his assertion that it is not a place but a frequency. According to Eddie, the soul's transition after death is an expansion of energy, a movement into a higher vibrational state. This perspective challenges the traditional view of the afterlife as a physical place, such as heaven or hell, and instead proposes that the soul operates on a different level, one that transcends time, space, and physical boundaries. To understand this concept, think about how energy works in our physical world. Energy is not created or destroyed. It simply transforms from one form to another. This is an idea that has long been recognized in physics, particularly in the law of conservation of energy. In the same way, Eddie teaches that the soul's consciousness is eternal, and when the body ceases to function, the soul's energy expands and enters into a different realm. This expansion is not a departure into nothingness, but a movement toward greater clarity, a return to the source. Take, for example, the influential physicist Albert Einstein, who proposed the theory of relativity and argued that energy and matter are interconnected. In a similar vein, Eddie's teachings suggest that the soul, like energy, does not disappear upon death but transforms into a higher state. The soul's vibration, shaped by the thoughts, actions, and intentions it carried throughout life, determines its journey after death. This journey is not based on rules or dogma, but on the frequency the soul emits. If the soul has lived with love, awareness, and authenticity, it vibrates at a higher frequency and moves toward a higher realm. This concept of the afterlife as a frequency rather than a place echoes the work of spiritual figures like Eckhart Tolle, who has written extensively about the importance of presence and the power of consciousness. In his book, The Power of Now, Tolle speaks about the importance of living in the present moment and how that awareness can elevate our consciousness. Eddie's teachings align with this idea, suggesting that the soul's vibration is determined by its level of awareness during its lifetime. The more present, loving, and authentic we are, the higher the vibrational frequency our soul will carry after death. The universe responds to energy, not rules. Eddie also introduces the idea that the universe does not operate on a system of rules, but responds to the energy we emit. The belief that we are judged for our actions is a misunderstanding, Eddie teaches. Instead, the universe responds to our energy, our vibration, and our authenticity. It is not our actions alone that determine our afterlife, but the frequency we embody during our lifetime. If we live with love, awareness, and kindness, our energy will be aligned with higher frequencies, guiding us toward a greater state of existence. This principle is reflected in the lives of individuals who have lived with authenticity and love. Take Mother Teresa, for example. Her life was one of service, love, and compassion. She was not concerned with being judged for her actions, but instead focused on embodying love and service to others. Mother Teresa's energy was one of compassion, and she lived her life with a deep awareness of the suffering of others. It's not hard to imagine that her soul, after death, would move toward a higher vibrational frequency because her actions were aligned with the highest form of love and compassion. Eddie's teachings reveal that the universe operates on resonance, not rules. What we embody in life shapes our journey after death. Our thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not separate from the energetic fabric of the universe. They are part of it. When we live with awareness, we become more attuned to the synchronistic events in our lives. These synchronicities, Eddie suggests, are glimpses into the truth of our eternal nature, a confirmation that our energy is part of a much larger, interconnected system. This idea can be seen in the life of someone like Barack Obama, whose presidency was marked by his emphasis on hope, unity, and change. His energy, characterized by optimism and a deep belief in the potential for positive change, resonated with millions of people around the world. The frequency of hope and unity he embodied has continued to influence the world even after his presidency. Eddie's teachings suggest that this resonance is not merely a result of our actions, but of the energy we carry throughout our lives. Living with awareness and love. The deeper Eddie's teachings go, the clearer it becomes that the afterlife is not about what we do, but about who we are. Our energy, the vibration we embody during our lifetime, determines our experience after death. Living with awareness, love, and authenticity is not just a philosophical ideal. It is a way of aligning our souls with the highest possible vibrational frequency. When we live with awareness, we become more attuned to the interconnectedness of all things. We begin to sense the synchronicities in our lives, the moments when we think of someone and they call us, or when we speak a thought and it is immediately reflected back to us. These experiences are not random. They are glimpses of the energetic interconnectedness of the universe. Eddie teaches that these synchronicities are signs that we are living in alignment with our true essence, and they are guiding us toward a higher state of being. Living with love, awareness, and authenticity allows us to embody the energy that will guide us toward a higher vibrational state after death. This alignment with our true essence is the key to the soul's journey. It is not about following rules or adhering to dogma, but about living in resonance with the universe. The more we live in this way, the higher the vibrational frequency of our soul, and the more we move toward enlightenment. Eddie's teachings invite us to let go of fear, guilt, and attachments, and instead embrace the process of transformation. The afterlife, as he describes it, is not a destination, but an expansion of consciousness. It is a return to light, to love, and to unity with the universe. When we live with awareness and love, we align our souls with the highest vibrational frequency, guiding us to a higher state of being. Through Eddie's wisdom, we are reminded that the journey of the soul does not end with death. It is simply another step in its eternal evolution. As Eddie Casey's teachings reveal, the soul's journey does not end with death. Instead, it evolves, expanding into higher realms of consciousness and light. The soul's ability to transcend fear, guilt, and attachment is the key to moving into this next phase of existence. Just as a caterpillar must shed its cocoon to become a butterfly, we too must release the illusions that bind us to the physical world, to fully embrace the transformation awaiting us after death. Eddie's wisdom challenges us to rethink everything we thought we knew about life, death, and the afterlife. The power of our energy, the vibration we embody during our lives, determines the nature of our journey after death. By living with awareness, love, and authenticity, we align our souls with the highest vibrational frequency, guiding us toward a deeper understanding of our eternal essence. The journey of the soul is an ongoing process, not defined by the end of the body, but by the continuous expansion of consciousness. Eddie's teachings remind us that the end of one phase is simply the beginning of another, one that leads us back to the light, to love, and to unity with the universe. Death is not something to fear, but something to embrace as part of the grand, infinite cycle of life. And when we finally let go of fear and embrace our true nature, we step into a freedom more profound than we ever imagined.